thing, how best to organize banking and mortgage lending. Well, yes, get all those regulations and pesky overseers out of the way, those government bureaucrats, get them out of the way. The best way to organize it is the free market. The healing powers of the free market need to just be allowed to let rip and do their thing. And that would be, and frankly, if you found yourself unemployed, no one's going to drop you a check so you can go on vacation. If you found yourself unemployed, that was your problem. That was your fault. And frankly, it was up to you. Nobody was going to help you out. It was up to you to do something about it. It was a whole ideology of personal responsibility that was raised. That idea, I think, has taken a massive, massive blow and is in the process of being overturned right now, and that's what we're living through. And that really explains, I believe, the Republican hyperventilating about Obama's a socialist. Obama's not a socialist, but the Republicans are like in hysterics about any little thing that's going on because their way of thinking is being trumped. So the ideas of socialism, even
For more of Joan's talk, go to our website, thestruggle.org. Now, two Israeli women who went to jail rather than to the occupied territories. Maya Wind and Netta Mishli were activists in Shministim, an Israeli high school students' organization opposed to their government's repugnant policies.
Shministim in Hebrew means 12th graders, and that's what we are. We are 12th graders who refuse to serve in the Israeli army because we don't want to serve the occupation of Palestine, which is immoral, it's illegal, it's against international law, and it violates basic rights of the Palestinian people. So I don't know what you do and do not know about Israel and conscription, but it's mandatory for all Jewish citizens, as well as for some non-Jewish minorities. This is a 2-year service for females and a 3-year service for males, at the very least. Although legally everyone is meant to serve, for many, many years in Israel, this has not been the case. Draft dodging, as it is called in Israel, has become a very widespread phenomenon. In fact, today, up to 40% of those meant to serve in Israel don't actually serve, and this is according to Army statistics as well. And there's a lot of ways to get exempted from service or to draft dodge, and we'll just mention them. So the first is religion. Orthodox, Jewish Orthodox males and females get automatically exempted because the state feels that the religious lifestyle they lead contradicts the lifestyle the army requires of them, and so they are released pretty much automatically. Mental health is another way you can go out. You go to a mental health officer, ranging from a social worker to a psychiatrist, and you explain why you cannot serve for mental health reasons. You can be exempted in this manner. A lot of people choose to do this because it's a very easy way to get out. There's also physical health. You go to an army physician, with some sort of physical problem, you can be released in that way. There's also misfitting. It's a sort of vague category. Anything from smoking pot in high school to a difficult socioeconomic background could qualify you as a misfit as far as the army is concerned, and you can be released. Marriage is also a possibility. This applies to women only. Married women are exempted from service. And the last way to get out is through pacifism, through the conscientious objector status. Israel, that likes to think of itself as a democracy, would, as a democratic country, have to respect basic human rights. Among them is freedom of conscience, and therefore Israel created a conscientious objector committee and status. To qualify to be a conscientious objector, you have to state that you are a universal pacifist, you would not engage in violence anywhere under any circumstance, and you cannot mention words like occupation or Palestine, because then you'd fail the committee and you'd be considered a political or a selective refuser, refusing to participate due to selective reasons as opposed to universal ones, and that is the category that the Shministim fall under. As you can see, all of the ways that I mentioned to be exempted do not apply to our group. We refuse to serve the occupation as a particular policy, and therefore, in an act of civil disobedience, we were sent to prison, each in our turn, in our respective draft dates. So we're actually called the Shministim letter, and this is because we wrote a letter that we sent to the government, to the Chief of Staff, to the Minister of Defense. We circulated it widely in Israel and collected about 200 signatures of teenagers supporting our message. And this letter is the letter summarizing our ideology, why we refuse to enlist. And I'll just read you maybe, David, can I have the next slide? Just read you a paragraph that summarizes our ideology well. We object to Israeli, quote-unquote, defense methods. checkpoints, targeted killing, roads for Jews only, sieges, and more, which serve the land-seizing policy, annex more occupied territories into Israel, and trample on Palestinian human rights. These actions are perhaps a temporary fix, but it is clear that in the long run only exacerbate the conflict. It is impossible to harm and imprison in the name of freedom, and thus it is impossible to be moral and serve the occupation. So this is our ideology, and this is why we don't serve.
Okay. As Maya said before, we do not fall under any of the category for release. In Israel, when you reach 18, you get a draft date, a date that the army sets for you. You have nothing to say about this. And from this date and on until you're being exempted, you're a soldier, which means that this is sort of an automatic procedure. You do not have to make any choice to become a soldier. When we come to the draft date and we say no to the order to become a soldier, we are being trialed as soldiers. Our crime is refusing an order, which is a crime that the punish for it is between 7 and 35 days in military prison. We serve this time, and after we serve this time, the order from jail is to go back to the draft base. In the draft base, we meet an officer. This officer, often a very nice person, will sit in front of you saying, well, you served your time, way to go, now go to the army. Of course, conscientious objectors, we don't want to join the army, we will refuse again. Some people have to go through this process 6 times, 7 times, 8 times, and until they get exempted. Everyone in our group were found to be mentally unfit. There is no other way to get out of the army after you fail the conscience committee. So basically we were all either asked to see a psychiatrist or sent to see a psychiatrist and found to be unfit to serve in the army. It's important to say that being a refusnik, especially a public refusnik, someone who takes this ideology and show it to the world, is a very isolated position in the Israeli society. Even though 40% of the people don't go, the national ethos or the feeling is that everyone goes. So being a refusnik it's kind of a very different thing to do. It's I felt very like an outsider, and so having this group, except for being a political power, it's also sort of a support group. We go together to the draft base when someone is sent to prison and demonstrate. We go outside of the wall of the prison and playing loud music or shouting to show the person who's inside that there is a group supporting him or her from the outside and believes in the same ideas that he or her being jailed for.
But I want to explain to you also a little bit about the Israeli narrative, because we're not trying to demonize Israelis, we're not trying to say we are bad people. We are trying to, and I think there are a lot of reasons why most Israelis don't think the way Netta and I do, and don't see the things that we are talking about. There are a lot of things obstructing Israelis' view. So the first, for example, is the fact that we have a very, very strong victim mentality in Israel. We are taught to fear the world from a very young age, everyone who's non-Jewish, really. And it's the way we are taught. So it's even stories that we hear from our grandparents about the Holocaust or other terrible events that were anti-Semitic in the history of the Jewish people. All right, I'll just speak up. In the history of the Jewish people. And I'm not saying that the Holocaust was a terrible thing. I'm not saying that anti-Semitism is not a problem. But holding on so strongly to this mentality and to this fear is very harmful. Sorry, I don't know why not. It's very harmful to the peace process because we have a basic distrust of I don't know what I'm talking about. We have a basic distrust of anyone who is not Jewish. Certainly Arabs, certainly Muslims, and certainly Palestinians.